Hey guys, it's the Mount Rushmore podcast. This is Jeff. I'm joined as always by Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
And we have a fun topic this week that Michael and Richard will debate and deliberate upon, and that is the Mount Rushmore of mid and post-credit sequences in movies. Michael, what are those things?
Those are those little kind of either halfway or at the end of a movie, some kind of interstitials that a movie will tag on to either promote another movie or will kind of expand on what happened in the movie, or maybe it's something else entirely different.
Yeah.
It's the things that the credits can have. The credits have grown to be this massive 3 to 5 minute, if not longer, relay of information that's just like white letters on the black screen. Yeah. And like, you watch a Star Wars movie and they don't have like end credit sequences or anything like that, but like there are 10,000 people that are involved in making a movie and it's amazing, credits list everyone now. It used to be just like, filmed in Panavision and then fade to black, and now it's like this is the assistant to the craft services. Yeah. And this is the company that's provided.
I love the production babies, especially on like Pixar movies.
Oh, do they do that?
Yeah, if you ever watch
really
Wait Till
sweet.
the End, they do like all the kids who were like who were like literally conceived and born during the stretch of time it took to make this movie.
And that's how their some of their parents actually find that out, because they're so busy working that they have to look at the credits and go, what the hell?
20 hours a day, yeah.
Oh my God, I got a kid?
But I think that these are often these things that we now, as audience, as moviegoers, we stick around longer than normally we would have. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember going to movies and being like, okay, let's go. We got to go because you got to beat parking. Yeah. But now you go see a Marvel movie or a DC movie or whatever it is, any sort of movie. They just have they'll have something either funny at the end or poignant or like it's kind of, sometimes they're actually part of the movie. Sometimes they're just like little throwaway gags or whatever. They can be fun. I think they've existed for a long time too, longer than what we've come to know them as now. Yeah. I think that they are just kind of fun and silly. Yeah. Good.
Okay, so you have 2 weeks in a row chosen the topic, so I'm going to ask you to start this week.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to live in the world of comic book movies.
Sure.
The very first post-credit sequence at the end of Iron Man. Yeah. Where Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury is standing in his Malibu home, just kind of, and Tony Stark just came back from this press conference announcing that he is Iron Man, something that I guess he kind of ad-libbed on set, or like he suggested that change at the end of the movie. Yeah. They were going to just like cut it off before he said anything, and then in the movie he says, I'm Iron Man, or whatever. Yeah. So at the end of the movie, Nick Fury, who is a very long-standing Marvel character, he's like the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and usually he's like this white guy with an eye patch, and he's like a super spy. Yeah. In the movie, he was played by Samuel Jackson.
Playing a white guy.
And the nerds got it. They didn't actually get upset, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But he basically says to the Robert Downey Jr. character, he says, I saw what you did up there. I want you to talk to you about the Avengers initiative. Yeah. Which is basically, the super team that Captain America and Thor and Iron Man basically found.
They should make a movie out of that.
They should make a movie.
Better do really well.
It's interesting that they put this on there as a teaser, not knowing what the next few years of movies were going to be. Iron Man could have been a flop. Yeah. He was relatively an unknown character, which is weird to say now because now he's like the face of Marvel, so to speak. And
he wasn't he was the B team. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't Spider-Man, and he wasn't Wolverine, and he wasn't Captain America. He wasn't the X-Men. He
wasn't even Hulk.
Wasn't even Hulk, which was their second film. And that film bombed. Yeah. That film didn't do as well as they thought it was going to do. I don't think.
That's after they made a separate, two separate.
They had another Hulk movie before that. Yeah. So the Incredible Hulk came out after Iron Man, and it was fine. It wasn't very good. It was.
When did the porn version, the Incredible Bulk, come out?
I remember you sent me a text at some point, Jeff. That had like the Incredible Sulk, and it was Morrissey. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, this is so great!" And there was another one with Robert Smith being sad, doing something comedy. But so they put this in there, not knowing having kind of a blueprint of what they were going to do, and here we are 10 years later, and they put out 18, 19 films and flooded the market, and they're so successful.
Yeah.
But part of it was like this little stinger at the end of the movie that kind of has become kind of rote in what they do now.
It's a signature of theirs.
Yeah, you have to have one, maybe two or three. Like the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie had 5 things kind of littered in between it. It was like, all right, you love yourself too much a little bit. But like, I think that they are, like you said, they're a signature of this sort of universe of movies that they kind of have to do now, that other companies try to ape.
Yeah. I feel like it in the Iron Man post-credit scene, they may have had enough of fan connection to know that people are excited about this Iron Man film thing.
Yeah.
And that they may have, in executive screenings, realized that these guys at Disney, they're as a No, they weren't distributed by Disney.
It was before they were Disney.
Paramount.
I think.
I don't know who was still Universal or somebody was distributing them. But they probably knew that fans were excited about this thing. And then also there's do-overs and take-backs in film. You could definitely say, nah, we're not going to do that. That was a fun thing to put right at the end. Or we're not going to do it yet. We'll do it in a decade or so like that.
It's funny, you mentioned Sam Jackson playing a white character or whatever. In the late 90s, early 2000s, Marvel had rebooted their universe, so to speak. We talked about this last week a little bit, about companies that kind of reboot their universes. Well, what they did is they created like a little side universe. They kept everything that was going with Marvel. Spider-Man still existed from the 60s, all the stories. But they're like, let's take the popular characters and retell their origin stories for a younger audience. And one of them they did was an Avengers title called The Ultimates. Mm-hmm. And they had a Nick Fury character that was the artist, Brian Hitch, based the art on Samuel Jackson.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Without Samuel Jackson knowing, without giving his likeness an approval, he just drew him, basically.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So they basically created a whole new career, or an additional career for Sam Jackson as this one character that if he had been in the comics in some way, would people have revolted in that same way that these assholes do about any time a person of color plays a white character that they do? They probably not.
Yeah.
But or maybe they would have. Mm-hmm. These people are assholes.
Yeah. I do imagine he created Nick Fury based on the character Shaft that was portrayed by Samuel L. Jackson, because Nick Fury seems like Shaft. He seems like a badass dude who's essentially a cop. Well, what is it? We talked about our subject is post and mid-credit sequences, and we talked about what they are, but why they are is also still, I think, one thing that we're shaping up here. We did discuss the idea that maybe there's something to keep people interested throughout the obligatory posting of every million persons who worked on this film. But the idea that they also serve to measure audience interest or tease somebody for this next edition of a something is something that feels very contemporary. The idea that, and then it seems like they are also replacing what Marvel has done before when they will also say it's not really a scene, it's just a title that says blank franchise will return.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Well, what does that even mean?
I don't know.
Okay, Richard's tuning out, but let's tune him back in.
No, I'm not tuning out. Yeah. I'm waiting my turn because mine is also in the Avengers verse.
Okay, what is
it? So mine is from the Avengers movie, and it's the last stinger, and it's where they are all sitting eating shawarma.
Oh yeah, that's pretty great.
I love it because most of the time these end credit scenes in the Marvel franchise are meant to impart some sort of big information.
Yeah.
It's a way to get some sort of
it's to tease the
Easter egg, or
it's to tease the audience about what's coming next or whatever. Yeah.
It's to get you excited for the next variation, whether it's going to be the next version of this movie or whatever the next of the
very true
87 movies that are going to be coming out the next 2 years.
We've seen the film of movie 1. So begins the marketing for movie 2.
Right.
And
yeah.
And it's usually presented in a big, dramatic sort of way.
Yeah.
And this is basically the exact opposite of that. This is just trying to fill in a gag that was set up earlier in the movie when Tony Stark mentioned something basically about wanting to live so he can take the guys to the shawarma place. Hey, I've never had shawarma before.
Yeah.
But I want to go.
Yeah, he's like flying around Manhattan fighting off these aliens.
Yeah, and so we cut forward to at the end of the credit sequences. We cut to them sitting in a shawarma place, and they just sort of like sullenly, like quietly, nobody's talking to each other.
It's amid this destruction that
that they
happened.
caused or partially caused at least.
We thought they were fatigued by the siege of Manhattan. Shawarma has done them even one worse.
It's like somehow let's get some of the heaviest fried food possible in you right after this.
It's funny. It feels like it feels like a post night out. Like we just got to eat. Just got to get garbage.
We got to
food
get
in it.
food
We're
in us.
So tired.
We're gonna be so hungover
the next.
We're gonna be so hungover the next morning if we don't. Let's eat something.
Did you read about Chris Evans? How the guy that plays Captain America? How he's sitting there in the scene with his hand like covering his mouth like this.
He looks like he's falling asleep
because he has a beard at that time for another role. So he's wearing like a prosthetic to cover up his.
Oh wow!
He was filming like Snowpiercer or something.
Yeah.
And so he's sitting there the entire time. He's the one that looks the most dejected, the most tired. He's just like sitting there, just like so worn out and covering up half of his mouth, not even eating.
An unconvincing prosthetic.
And they're just faking it. There's like behind the scenes photos, and it's like this god awful looking like rubber piece that's like covering his beard, and it looks tremendous, but like movie magic.
Well, because they actually filmed that after the movie's premiere in Los Angeles. It wasn't something that was shot like originally. It's something that I think they just sort of realized at the end, like, hey, this would be a good bit.
One of my picks later, they did the exact same thing.
Did they?
I'm excited to talk about
I'm amazed by the strength of Marvel Studios at that time and the idea that we're not seeing individual movies. We're just seeing installments in a larger ongoing franchise. So
and that's the one, and of course Avengers is the one that kind of brings it all together. So then therefore when any of these characters have their own movie, it's no longer just the third in an Iron Man movie. It's also a continuation of the Avengers arc.
But in that case, Kevin Feige doesn't have to say to Disney, I want a big chunk of money to bring these celebrities back from their other movies so I can shoot this dumb scene of them kind of in a food coma from shawarma.
Right.
Essentially, they're on a break from filming the next solo movie. Or they're off on their own. It's this ongoing thing. The one thing that I can think of as similar to what Marvel has done with these characters are the spate of films that Saturday Night Live stars have done. The feature films that SNL stars
like
comics.
Based on SNL skits?
Yeah, based on SNL skits or based on the personas of SNL. Like for a while there, every Will Ferrell movie you knew might have Vince Vaughn in it. You knew might have also a couple of its other people. You knew there'd be cameos from these comics.
Or a Sandler movie would have Rob Schneider in it, and Steve Buscemi would be involved.
Right. So it was somewhat of an ensemble of people that, different movie, same identity, really.
It's like the Sandler thing was like a Wes Anderson troupe, except dumber.
Except stupid, yeah. So that all these characters kind of existed, whether it was I don't know, whether it might be called Anchorman or might be called Talladega Nights or might be called something semi-pro, but you know that they're the same people doing the same doofus thing, and there's going to be
they're all in
cameo.
a school play, just doing the new year's the new semester's production. What are we doing? Oh, we're doing the basketball movie this year. Okay, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Get the basketball shorts. Get the prop department to blow up the basketballs.
And you knew there'd be a cameo by by Ben Stiller as this guy or whatever. So
right. The last thing I'll say about it is I just love the little touch of the non-superhero at the table. Well, not the only one, but the fact that Bruce Banner is the only one who seems to be actually enjoying the food.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He has a Hulk-like appetite, I guess, because he's the only one who's kind of sitting there like, yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like going from bored to disappointed in what they're eating.
And God bless the guy that's actually operating the shawarma place that has had its
Sweeping
windows
up.
blown in, that's sweeping up the giant lizards or whatever that has attacked, and is like still sat down to cut up some Cut up some meats. for
But
the-
I'm
for
sure the
gang.
National Schwarma Council was excited about this opportunity.
Can you imagine? the
Shawarma, it's
Joss-
what's for dinner if you're eating at a shawarma place.
Joss Whedon can't, get his wallet out at a shawarma place from here on through the rest of his life. No, sir, it's on us. What I do love about that scene too is, if the Avengers sequels were about this team breaking apart, that first film was definitely about them all coming together, and they don't really gel until the third act anyhow. So this final scene of them feasting together and breaking bread together is, even though it's kind of a silent coda for the whole thing, it's the ultimate proof that they were able to become a team, that they can just kind of sit there and...
But at the same time, they have nothing to say to each other.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
kind of goes to prove the point that, yes, they can be a team, but they're also, like, incredibly diverse people
I think it's
who
the...
otherwise wouldn't get together.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Michael, what is your second?
My second one is another film that featured a scene that was added about a month after it initially came out, and that was Kip's wedding in Napoleon Dynamite, a movie that I will continue to talk about incessantly, that I love it. At the end of the movie, Kip and LaFonda, the girl, get married, and it's a ridiculous wedding. Napoleon rides up on this giant horse, and he says something, inane, like, "I tamed this wild stallion for you," and Kip's like, And Kip sings this ridiculous song that he wrote to LaFonda.
I'm not remembering this at all.
So when the movie first came out, it came out in theaters in like June of 2004.
Yeah.
That month they shot this scene, and then added it a month later to like a further release of the movie.
Oh wow!
Because it had become, I don't know if like it had shown to be popular in that time,
it went
or
from indie to big.
Maybe within a couple of weeks they were probably like, "Oh, this is like a bigger hit than we realized. Let's spend a few $1,000s and film a ridiculous scene."
Mm-hmm.
And like LaFonda's family's all there, just sitting there, just shaking her head. She's marrying this guy.
Yeah.
But it's just this perfect little 3 to 5 minute scene that is. The entire film is unnecessary.
Yeah.
But like, it's totally unnecessary, and they did it just because they thought, "Oh, this would be funny.
Yeah.
Let's add this." And it happens like it says like a little card comes up that says 2 months later while you're watching the credits, and you're just like, "Oh, wait, what?" It's not about Napoleon. It's about this dumb love, the romance of Kip and LaFonda.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so perfectly done, and everyone's in perfect character, and it captures everything in just such a unique way.
That film begat so many. I think it was kind of wonderful that it disrupted where comedy was going. There was so much kind of like frat, kind of, I don't know, more aggressive kind of comedy, and that film was disruptive in that after that I remember seeing so many quirky small comedies that were about the oddballs that have, despite what we think about them, have romances and have desires to be distinguished in some way, and I felt like that was a little bit of started kind of an indie trend.
It always felt to me like a movie that Bud Cort would have starred in the 70s or something like that. There was that period of time where there were movies like that.
Yeah.
And then the 80s, other than like your Revenge of the Nerds, which really isn't about that at all, you kind of lost those kind of movies about like the
quirky
real
outsider.
loser type guys.
Yeah.
It's funny because that is a scene. The wedding scene is a scene where the loser wins. Like Kip, like Napoleon's a loser in the movie who kind of wins through his big dance at the end, and Kip is this guy who's just, much older brother who like finds love online in an unlikely person.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, this is never gonna work.
Yeah.
He goes off on a bus with her. He gets dressed up in like kind of her outfits that she's picked out for him.
Uh-huh.
And then he just leaves, Preston, Idaho, and then comes back, and it's like 2 months later. It's like, oh, I guess they did find love. I guess they are getting married.
Yeah.
And she is so thrilled to be married to this guy.
Uh-huh.
The loser getting right.
Yeah. I think in an earlier podcast we discussed what I said what I thought was charming about that, and Napoleon ends up saving the day because he presents, here's a guy who tells all these lies about who he is. And then at the end he does this wordless dance that presents his authentic dorky self and gets applause for it. Like here he lays it all on the line. So maybe Kip ends up doing that too. He bears his ridiculous soul to LaFonda. Richard?
All right, so my second one are the outtakes from Cannonball Run.
I was waiting. You
knew if one of the two of us was going to pull that one off
I've
out
been
of my
wanting
hat.
to comment on that, but I knew one of you would say that.
Oh, I rewatched it today in preparation, and
I
I
love it.
didn't realize that the majority of the outtakes are Burt Reynolds either hitting Dom DeLuise
Yeah.
or threatening to hit Dom DeLuise as Dom DeLuise is cracking up and Burt Reynolds is come over here a second.
Yeah.
No, don't hit me, ha ha ha. And it's like, that's really not funny anymore.
Yeah, it's abusive.
It's an
awful.
abuse.
Yeah.
This is an awful
Yeah.
abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Is what this is.
I know in his book, Hal Needham says he essentially invented that. Like he, as a guy who was a second unit stunt director turned director,
Right.
And Cannonball Run was his first. I think it was his first feature film that he wrote ostensibly.
Right.
That he just took a kind of I don't even know what you'd say it, like austerity approach to it. If there was something funny, he found a way to put it in the movie.
Right.
And if he had to stick it in the credits, he would do it. So so he claims to have invented that even though they're not scenes per se, they're outtakes.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like, just sort of like throw it all in there. And,
Yeah.
and it helped to further the persona of Burt Reynolds as kind of the cool sort of like
affable.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
That's one of the great things about some of those new Will Ferrell movies is they do a lot of that stuff. Is so much of it is improv, and they just like save it for the editing room floor and save it for like the post-credit sequence.
Yeah.
When you can just like dump all the garbage things that Ron Burgundy
Yeah.
has to say into. Listen, we got another 6 minutes that we can just like barf it all out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be the best stuff, but it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
And anytime you see comedians cracking up comedians,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
good.
Well, that's one of the bits actually is Dom DeLuise starts cracking up.
Mm-hmm.
And Burt Reynolds gets mad, and Dom DeLuise is like, no, he started laughing first. And he's pointing at Dean Martin, who is like sitting there like rolling on the ground over something.
Do you know what are incredible outtakes is? Anytime you see Muppets, like anytime you see people, anytime you see like outtakes with Muppets, like they're rude, they cuss, they make fun of whatever celebrity they're dealing with, and they stay in character, which is the best thing.
Yeah,
it's
they're
like
not cracking up. Yeah.
they're just like the performers. You realize that the people that are, behind the little felt characters are just like, oh, they're comedians, they're actors, they're staying in character, and you're making Tom Hanks talk to like a green frog, and he has to believe he's talking to a green frog. So they keep talking like a green frog, and he's like going to maintain eye contact with a puppet. Those things are so wonderful.
Wasn't there a movie that came out that they just reused some of the Cannonball Run outtakes as their outtakes at the end?
Oh God, really?
I think it was in one of those Will Ferrell movies.
I think it was,
where
wasn't
they
it?
just threw in a couple of those.
like Talladega or something.
Or like Anchorman 2 or something like that.
Sounds right in their wheelhouse.
I remember the Stroker Ace post credits are the bloopers and seeing
they all involve Lonnie Anderson's knockers, basically jokes about that.
Jim Neighbors, breaking up in takes and things like that.
I remember as a kid thinking, this is incredible. I get to see like this behind the scenes shit that's happening. This must be what a film set's like all the time. It seems remarkable.
Convivial goofballs. And I think back then when they were just all kind of drunk after 2 p.m. in the day, they're going to be drunk anyhow. So what I think they had back then, I remember shows.
It's cocaine.
They had cocaine. I remember there were shows that it was like America's Favorite Bloopers.
Oh, TV's bloopers,
TV's
practical
bloopers,
jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd see the occasion.
Dick Clark and Ed McMahon,
You'd see bits and pieces of people from TV series like flubbing lines, and that was the most hilarious thing.
Yeah. So I do wonder if that predated those post scenes.
Well, you have the Kermit Schaefer blooper series. Are you familiar with those?
Oh, sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was the father of the blooper, but of course what he would do is he put out
the old blooper.
he would put out these albums that were supposedly like collections of radio bloopers and TV bloopers.
Oh yeah.
But like 3/4 of them were like made up. Dramatized versions of these bloopers that may or may not have happened.
Yeah, a 21 Son Galoot.
Exactly.
Yeah, fake announcer doing a fake thing.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
My favorite variation of this is the end credits to A Bug's Life.
Oh yeah.
Where it's basically all it's a blooper reel from A Bug's Life, which is incredible. It's a blooper reel from a cartoon.
We were talking about this earlier when, you're forcing these people work 20-hour days. These animators are on a tight time frame. They've got to get this stuff done. And then they're like, "Hey, can you animate some fake bloopers?" I haven't seen my kids. I don't know what their name. I don't know what they look like. And you want me to sit here and drop a fake boom on top of like A Bug's Life?
Yeah.
And like when Julia Louis-Dreyfus fake laughs?
Yeah.
You want me to animate? You want me to animate that? I don't know where I live anymore. My wife's left me.
That I would say, I think it was Toy Story 2. They had Joan Cusack doing some outtakes as Jessie the cowgirl, and you did see the boom drop in, and you saw a clapper come in, and it gave them so much more realness.
It did.
Yeah. They breathed some life into the characters. Okay. I'm fascinated. If you will ever want to read Hal Needham's autobiography, it's a lot of fun.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, from the idea of his stunt career, to his different aspects of innovation that he brought to stunts and to like NASCAR and all that stuff.
Is it available on Audible?
It is available on Audible, and you could go to, I believe it's available on Audible. Let's see who it's read by. So if you want to support the Mount Rushmore podcast and you want to enjoy good literature, you could go to our trial. We're on trial, actually. We should be guilty as charged.
Crimes against podcasting.
Crimes against podcasting in your ears. audibletrial.com/Rushmore, and you can go to download a free audiobook for a 30-day free trial, and you can try out different audiobooks free of charge. One you get for free. You don't have to return it after the 30 days are over. Whether you like the service or not, you don't have to give it back. But you can download, let me just plug this autobiography. Stuntman, My Car Crashing, Plane Jumping, Bone Breaking, Death Defying Hollywood Life. That is a book by Hal Needham. There's probably some other fun books that you can download in their Audible form and listen to them versus reading with your stupid eyes. That's so dumb. By doing our 30-day free trial for Audible, audibletrial.com/Rushmore. And there's 180,000 or more titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go there, try it out. If you don't like it, keep the book for free. For free! You don't have to give it back. You can also go to our Facebook page and our YouTube, our Instagram, and our Twitter, and join the dialogue for Mount Rushmore Podcast by suggesting a topic you'd like us to debate or suggesting something we may have missed in a previous topic. Go to iTunes, download, rate, and review our previous episodes. You could also do that on Stitcher. We'd appreciate hearing from you and finding out what you like. I guess there's other podcasts out there, and I know we would like to support them. And one of the podcasts you could support is this one that's promoted right here.
On Proudly Resents, we proudly resent some of our favorite good bad movies with great comedians and interviews with the people who made them, like Lloyd Kaufman from Trauma Films.
Let's say you want to crush a head like Toxic Avenger. You take a cantaloupe, carve out the inside, then you put in hamburger mixed with cranberry sauce. Then you put a wig on the cantaloupe and paint a little happy face. Bingo, it's how we crush the head.
For more interviews and reviews, check out Proudly Resents on Stitcher, iTunes, and proudlyresents.com.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Hal Needham, and that the movie that I'm going to bring up is Rumble in the Bronx.
Oh, right on.
Nice.
And the post-credit sequences are the amazing flubs and gaffes and injuries by Jackie Chan and his cadre of performers. Mm-hmm. And it is really such a wonderful sequence. It has like this great rock song. It's like this go-go Jackie Chan rock song that's playing underneath it. Yeah. And, this movie is like peak Jackie Chan. It was like one of his first like American movies that kind of came out. Yeah. It was put out in American cinemas. And I remember seeing it being like, this guy is incredible. And then you're like, oh yeah, he does all his own stunts. You're like, wait, what? Oh, he does everything. He jumps across the thing. He does all the stuff that he's running up the walls and jumping through like shopping carts. Yeah. And the kind of outtakes that plays during the credits are like he gets stuck in the shopping cart. He jumps onto a hovercraft and breaks his ankle. Yeah. And then the next shots are him being carted off. And, 30 seconds later in the outtakes, he's wearing a walking cast with a fake tennis shoe so he can go back and film. And you're just like, who is this amazing Superman that is, 5'4" and just like has all the energy in the world?
And he's like Charlie Chaplin meets Bruce Lee.
This movie is incredible. He has a duel in a Lamborghini against a hovercraft with a giant sword, and you're just like, I am so in.
Yeah, it's
on
like
everything you're selling.
It's like this new Mission Impossible movie. Everyone's raving about all the stunts. Tom Cruise, like, get out of here.
Yeah,
this guy cracked his skull open and just like got up and it's like, okay, let's do another take.
The credits are great because you see all the different actors and stunt performers. You see them get hurt, and then immediately you see this. The entire production stops and everyone rushes in.
Yeah,
someone falls down. It's just like. Vroom, and they're always, and you see his scary smile, like Jackie Chan's smile of like him almost dying.
Yeah,
and he's just like, whoa, he can't believe it, but like turns to the camera and gives a big thumbs up, and you're just like, man, I love this guy. You can't act for shit.
Yeah,
but you give everything.
It is funny, to see him like punch some guy and then turn to the kid and go, "Stay in school, don't do drugs, honor your father." Chop, 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 pow, 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 pow.
You guys going down wrong path.
I was a little bit disappointed when somebody said, "Oh no, Jackie Chan."
Yeah,
whoa.
Jackie Chan gets followed around on a movie set with 5 guys who are dressed just like Jackie Chan, and they all kind of audit to see who can do the stunt. If Jackie doesn't think he can do it, which is most of the stunts, there's all these guys who are dressed just like him.
Can you imagine a stunt that he thought was too difficult for him to do? Dear God.
In the
who's the guy that's slightly brain
damaged?
Yeah,
he can do that.
It's like
let's convince him to make that leap.
It's the Michael Keaton copy of a copy version from Multiplicity, except it's Jackie Chan.
There was a funny story of Burt Ward from Batman.
Hell yeah.
Getting in the Batmobile to do some kind of very challenging driving stunt, and he was kind of surprised that he gets in the Batmobile to see, and he starts talking to Adam West, and then realize it's not Adam West, it's Adam West's stunt double who's in there because it's a dangerous stunt. And he asks, "Well, where's my stunt double?" He goes, he looks too much. He doesn't look enough like you. He's not going to do the stunt. They don't want him doing the stunt." And he said he went to the hospital like 3 times in the first day of taping Batman because the stunt double wouldn't double for him. Kind of funny. Okay, Richard.
All right, this is from the movie Airplane.
Oh, wow.
And talk about a continuation.
This one is a long played joke.
It is a long played joke. So at the very beginning of the movie, Ted Stryker is a cabbie, and he decides to go to the airport to try to convince the love of his life to get back with him. So he leaves his fare at the airport, waiting there. Says, "I'll be right back." And then we don't see him for the rest of the movie as he goes on the plane, everyone gets incapacitated. He has to fly the plane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Very end of the movie, go through the credits, cut back. All this time, same guy has been sitting there in the cab, and he just looks at his watch and goes, "All right, 20 more minutes, but that's it." And that's the end of the movie.
That's the end of the movie.
And I just love it because in this movie that is so
irreverent and
so
silly.
fast-paced, where you've got jokes, and then it was the first one of its kind that really had these sort of oddball.
Yeah.
The whole point of it was just a joke a second, bang, 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 just things bouncing off all over the place. That they still had time to set up the one joke that they took time on. That wasn't just rushed and, hey, let's go, binga, banga, bunga, bungo, is this thing that they just set up for the entire movie.
Yeah.
And then kind of let go on you.
Mm-hmm.
And this, and they this extra, this 75-year-old, 80-year-old looking guy have this one moment of just comedic perfection. It wasn't one of the main characters. It wasn't anyone you knew. It was just this one guy who just got this perfect gem of a line at the very end. Yeah. And I think it's indicative of the way their minds worked. Mm-hmm. The idea of just if there's a joke, we're going to make it. Yeah. And I who knows? They may not have even. I don't know. Who knows if they wrote the script knowing that was going to be a stinger at the end, or if they got through the script and were like, "Oh wait, we never did anything with that guy. Maybe we can do something at the very end." I could see that happening because that's just the way their brains seem to have worked.
It's funny. I had heard an interview with the Abrams Zuckers, and I thought, for some reason, I thought he was one of their parents. But he is Howard Jarvis, who was a consumer rights activist who led a campaign in California for the Proposition 13, which cut property tax.
Yeah.
That was his.
That was him?
He's got 2 credits, being in Airplane and then being on Johnny Carson show to talk about being in Airplane. But
Of the Jarvis tax bureau.
he founded the
people.
Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. It's so funny.
Which is a good rule of thumb, by the way, if you're voting in California. Little pro tip from me. If the Howard Jarvis Tax Bureau, whatever they're called, is for a measure, vote against it.
Oh, you are
go vice versa,
you
or
weren't
the
making
other way
this
around.
up. You are familiar with the Howard Jarvis Tax?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they are one of those like no taxes are ever good.
Yeah.
You know, we should basically all taxes should be like abolished.
Yeah.
Schools, should have to pay for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good theory. If you ever have to vote and you see that they're opposing something, it's probably a good sign to vote for it. I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
That is a funny observation that in a film that is full of short-term payoffs, and in some things that are like a cartoon, in which something happens in a cartoon, Tom and Jerry can have a bomb explode, and then a scene later, their faces aren't charred anymore. That they're going on their merry way, and that film had those things happen where. 1 second, a nun is playing guitar, or singing Aretha Franklin or something like that, and the next scene we don't see her anymore. So that is the long con.
The one long con in the whole movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like recurring bits, but you don't have anything that just like takes that long to like unfurl.
Yeah, that's funny. I was going to say Rumble in the Bronx. One thing it was one of the first movies that I remember thinking, this is called Rumble in the Bronx, but it so clearly takes place in Toronto because
that was almost in my list of things that ruined movies a few weeks ago that we did. Was when Vancouver is used as the stand-in for New York or whatever city that they needed to stand for. It's like I've been in both cities and they do not look anything alike.
The spray paint graffiti says "darn," or like that's the cleanest trash I've ever seen.
Oh jeez.
Oh jeez.
There's a very self-referential part in like an Austin Powers movie where like he's driving his Jaguar and he's like, it's amazing how much the English countryside looks exactly like Southern California. He's like, yeah.
Okay, the last one is what, Michael?
My last pick. You know how we started with the Iron Man, and it was all about how the promise of what's going to happen in these next movies, it's going to lead to this huge universe, and 20 movies later, you're like, I can't wait for the next Avengers movie. Like, Avengers 4 is going to come. I'm so excited. Emily and I watched Avengers 3 the other night, and she was like, oh, holy shit, that's, wow.
Yeah.
The movie Masters of the Universe
good one.
Had a end credit sequence where at the end of the movie, He-Man throws down Skeletor into this giant pit in Castle Eternia, or Castle Grayskull, I should say. And, he saves the day in an otherwise kind of worthless garbage movie. And it's a garbage movie when they're like, let's set 70% of it on Earth.
Oh,
let's get off of like the really exciting, barbarian, futuristic planet.
It's too expensive. Yeah,
let's put them in the valley someplace. And it very much takes place like in the valley. But at the end of the movie, they go back to Eternia, and He-Man fights Skeletor, and there's epic battle. He-Man wins. Credits roll. Then there's like this really poorly, weird pink lake sort of thing, and Franklin Jella as Skeletor's bald head pops up and says, "I'll be back." And he's used Schwarzenegger's most famous line, and he's had that line for 5 or 6 movies at this point in the late '80s. He did not come back.
Well, who was he talking to?
I guess the audience.
The audience
breaking the fourth wall.
He pulled a Ferris Bueller, I guess.
Yes.
And he's like, you're just like, oh, is Skeletor? Are they gonna have another? And then. No, this movie made no money. And that's how you can add a stinger and expect maybe there's all this promise, and then it's like, you know what? The movie fucking sucked.
I would love if that was one in a bunch of takes where he was supposed to say, he was just supposed to go, ah!
That's all, folks.
And Frank Langella was so desperate for work that he and the other actors would just turn to the camera and go, there'll be a sequel.
I love that.
Cut. No, there won't.
I love that like they made Frank Langella like sit in this
ooze.
pink water and just Frank, the last thing you got to do.
Yeah.
We got to do more of these movies. Like there's must have been two thoughts.
No.
One, you got to pop your head up. You got to be submerged underwater in all this makeup and say this thing. And two, you might be contracted for another movie.
Shit, no.
That's what you get when you work for a Canon film.
Yeah. Oh.
That I think there's a Canon documentary
There
on
is.
Netflix that is great.
It's very good.
These,
I gotta
they're
check that
all
out.
shysters.
Yeah, it's a wild story.
Ricardo.
All right, you mentioned it in your last
That almost made my list.
The Ferris Bueller's Day Off
Yeah.
final
Nice.
credit
Nice.
scene. So it's actually two parts. The first part is Principal Rooney
Yeah.
walking through
Yeah.
the bus after he's got his ass kicked by the dog and Jennifer Grey at Ferris's house, and trying to find a place to sit and just being absolutely miserable while Oh Yeah is playing. And then the second part is Ferris coming out and just sort of looking at the camera and going, "What are you still doing here? Movie's over.
Yeah.
Go home." Which I just love because it's in a movie that breaks the fourth wall
Yeah.
so many times.
Yeah.
This is the last bit of like true fourth wall
Mm-hmm.
breaking, where it's not just him talking to the camera, but it's actually meta at this point, where he's acknowledging that it's a movie and that you're a person in the audience who is watching him.
Yeah.
What's nice is that these post-credit sequences are they're like rewards. Like if you have stuck through 5 minutes of like just credits, which are usually pretty boring, like you get a little something at the end. And that is like the perfect like cherry on top of this movie, where he comes out and he's literally talking to you, the audience member, sitting there saying, "What you did?
Why?
This isn't anything interesting. This isn't like a great joke. This is just like, go away, go home."
Yeah.
It's perfect.
So I'm one of those people who actually sits through the movie whether or not there's a post-credit scene coming. So it's just part of what Sarah and I do. Like we just sit there and that's our time to start talking about the movie and what we thought about it, we liked and didn't like. And
Yeah.
it's just sort of nice to be able to just sort of, oh, hey, that's who did the song to that. I was wondering who did that song. Okay.
Do you see movies a lot just with Sarah?
Not that much, but we get out, maybe, I don't know, once a month.
When you go with it? Because I guess my question is because we obviously Felix is not old enough yet to sit through. He's not old enough to sit through like 4-minute video on TV, let alone go to a movie theater.
I'm with Felix.
But like,
Unless Jeff is nursing, then he goes right to sleep.
I
I have offered so many goddamn times.
I imagine that like when you take the kids out, I know you guys go to the drive-in a lot though, but like when you take the kids out to go see a film, I'm sure that the last thing they want to do is sit to the end, and I'm sure that they're just like bouncing off the walls, just like peeling themselves off. Like, I got to get back to an iPad someplace.
No, they're fine actually.
they?
Yeah, partially because they want to see if there's an end credit or not.
So they're indoctrinated.
So they're now
That's great.
they now
Yeah.
expect that most movies will have something.
That's
at the end.
interesting. That must have been difficult when they're for kids or parents when they're to balance that when there wasn't that.
Your Ferris Bueller reference made me think of Animal addressing the screen in the Muppet movie.
Yeah, that's actually everyone thinks of the Ferris Bueller as being the first time that happened, but
Mm-hmm.
Animal, it's basically ripping off Muppet movie.
I did love that as a kid. I remember thinking that Animal's talking right to me.
Right.
So something really fun about
And
it.
I don't know that any end credit scene has been spoofed more times than Ferris Bueller. Like the Deadpool one, for example, where he comes out and gives the exact same speech,
Wearing the same robe
and
something.
everything. Yeah.
Oh my God, I only saw Ferris Bueller once in the theater, so it was not a mainstay or like a touchstone for me.
Really?
So I saw Deadpool do that and didn't even. I don't think I even thought it was.
That's so
I thought,
funny.
what do I not know? What are these kids doing with their fidget spinners and their YOLOs? This
All
is
of these
related.
kids in their YOLOs.
They're all their YOLOs.
Don't touch your YOLOs, kids.
Yeah, don't touch them. Not. So wait till the end of the podcast. Okay, this has been the Mount Rushmore of the mid and post-credit sequences from films. It has been fun to discuss, and especially in the summer when there's a lot of these big budget movies that have a lot of these things in them. So because I was a huge fan of Iron Man, I'm going to pick Iron Man, the Nick Fury scene. I am a huge fan of Cannonball Run and loved all that stuff when it was happening back in the 80s when I saw it. And so Cannonball Run is one. I'm a big fan of that Schwarma scene from the Avengers, so we picked that guy. And going to go with that airplane scene because I love that it gave the long con to the end credits. So this is the end of the podcast. It's been the Mount Rushmore of post and end and credit scenes and stuff like that.
Please stay through all of the credits.
This is totally the end. My name's Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
Hey guys, you know what would be really lame is if we did the whole let all the music play at the end.
Okay.
And then we came back and we did a little like or would that be lame?
I don't know.
Is that too expected?
I don't know. Now that we're saying it, I wonder if they will.
I'm gonna basically. I flubbed my line just there, guys.
Hold
Hold on, I'm gonna fall down these stairs and break my ankle. Isn't that funny?